Thank you, Peter and Terry. That was a beautiful song. It really reflects my mood this morning. I'm very emotional this week. And I'm going to rely a lot on scholars that I've known and read across the years, because I'm afraid of my own words. When I was in seminary, we had to study the history of Israel to put in context the text that we were reading. Too often, we read things that are out of context, and we apply meanings to them that were never intended. And so it's important to have some understanding of the history that produced these movements that we call the prophetic movement and that we call the Christian faith. And we had another textbook that was more recent, and it was the more radical. It was a socioeconomic history of the people of Israel, and you kind of knew where that author was coming from. But John Bright, that's the classic. That's just the textbook. But you cannot read the prophets without hearing them scream. You cannot read the prophets without understanding that they were at their wits' end on behalf of God. We talk about fire and brimstone preaching. Well, this is fire and brimstone preaching. But what we've been fooled about is that fire and brimstone preaching was always aimed at the individual for their peccadillos, for what do they used to call it? You know, drinking, chasing, and gambling. No, the fire and brimstone was called down on nations that did not do justice. And I'm not saying that. John Bright said that in 1959. Oh, wait a minute. No, John Bright didn't say that. Isaiah said it in the 7th century before Christ. So this is not some new left-wing nonsense. This is the classics. And that's why I had Chris, and it was a wonderful, powerful reading, Chris, to read both of these texts. These are the classics. You can't call yourself a Christian if you don't know these stories and these words. And so before I get out of here, I want y'all to hear that. John Bright writes, the prophets of Judah in the late 8th century ceaselessly addressed themselves to the national emergency. In all her history, Israel produced few figures of greater stature than Isaiah. Called to the prophetic office in the year of Uzziah's death, for 50 years he towered over the contemporary scene and guided the nation through her hour of tragedy and crisis. Pilgrim, our nation is in an hour of tragedy and crisis. We've heard about the dismantling, the disruption, the cessation of payments to the United States International Aid and Development, USAID. And what I understand happened is that they were told, if you cancel these payments, if you recall these employees, if you shut USAID down, people will die. No, they were told this. They knew this, and they said, shut it down. Do it. AIDS patients cannot receive life-saving medicine that is sitting on the dock because the truckers are contract workers and they were let go immediately. Food for infants, children, starving people is rotting on the docks across the continent of Africa, across the continent of Asia. The United States provides 40% of the world's aid. And people are dying. Clinical trials to prevent the transmission of HIV include and have enrolled women to receive medical devices into their bodies that need now to be removed. And there's one clinic in South Africa where the nurses and doctors are defying the order and performing their obligation, their moral obligation to complete the clinical trial lest these people be harmed after we invited them to participate in this trial. But the greatest concern of our leader is that the white South Africans are being mistreated by the majority black population. And in fact, will exempt Afrikaners, which Elon Musk is. Don't be fooled. Will exempt Afrikaners from the ban on immigration and bring them here. John Bright continues as he describes the prophetic movement in ancient Israel. We have spoken of the socioeconomic ills for which the official religion had no rebuke. Because the official cult of the nation, because the high priest at the temple had no rebuke for the king who was exploiting the poor, the prophet had to rise. The prophet is called because the cult, the high priest, and the temple that is supposed to be the temple serving Yahweh had abandoned Yahweh's covenant. And so God asked the question, who will go for us? Who will go for us? My priests have abandoned us. My temple is polluted by the lies that they tell. Who will go for us? Bright continues. In short, with the progressive disintegration of the ancestral social patterns, the moral and social obligations which had been the original basis of Israelite society had been largely forgotten by many of Judah's citizens. He's talking about Judah, not the United States, but we are. Had been largely forgotten by many of Judah's citizens to whom Yahweh had become the national guardian whose function it was in return for meticulous cultic observance to give the nation protection and blessing. The national cult, the national religion, had turned God into a functionary. They had created a transactional, not a covenantal relationship with the divine. It was a transactional relationship in which the Israelite king and the high priest would perform all of the liturgy, would perform all of the prayers and would sing the songs and then demand that God protect their nation. But God said, who will go for us? When our national religions fail to have a rebuke of leadership, when it abandons its moral obligations and its social commitments to the people of this nation and the world, then the national cult of religion has failed, and prophets must rise. Isaiah 1:10 through 27 says, hear the word of the Lord. Here's the fire and brimstone. You rulers of Sodom, talking about Israel, listen to the teaching of your God, you people of Gomorrah. What to me is the multitude of your sacrifices, says the Lord. I've had enough of burnt offerings, of rams, and of fat of fed beasts. I do not delight in the blood of bulls, or of rams, or of lambs, or of goats. When you come to appear before me, who asked this of your hand? Trample my courts no more. Bringing offerings is futile. Incense is an abomination to me. I cannot endure the solemn assemblies with iniquity. Your new moons and your appointed festivals, my soul hates. They have become a burden to me. I am weary of bearing them. When you stretch out your hands, I will hide my eyes from you. Even though you make many prayers, I will not listen. Your hands are full of blood. Wash yourselves. Make yourselves clean. Remove the evil of your doings from before my eyes. Cease to do evil. Learn to do good. Seek justice. Rescue the oppressed. Defend the orphan. Plead for the widow. He goes on, Isaiah goes on, talking about the capital city, talking about Zion, talking about Jerusalem, the place where God was believed to dwell. How the faithful city has become a whore. She that was full of justice, righteousness lodged in her, but now murderers. When you know that your action will result in someone's death, I'm sorry. That's murder. Righteousness lodged in her, but now murderers. Your princes are rebels and companions of thieves. Everyone loves a bribe and runs after gifts. They do not defend the orphan, and the widow's cause does not come before them. Therefore, says the sovereign, the Lord of hosts, the mighty one of Israel, I will pour out my wrath. God asked then, and God is asking now, who will go from us? Who will go for us? The move from Isaiah to Jesus was a move from a prophet moving to a prophetic movement. Jesus calls the fishers to cast their nets to catch people. I always had trouble with this passage because you got fishermen throwing out their hooks, and you're going to hook somebody? I don't want to be hooked. But no. This translation gives me a different understanding with this translation. People are dying, people are hurting, people are falling, and we're called to catch people. We're called to catch people. That's what the call of Jesus is today. Catch people that are falling. Catch people that are starving. Catch people that are sick. Catch people that need what we have in abundance. God has blessed this land So much that we are indisputably the richest, wealthiest, most powerful nation human history has ever known. So all this poor-mouthing about what we don't have and the price of eggs and the price of this and the price of that, go to Zambia. Go to Cote d'Ivoire. Go to Thailand. Go to those hovels and villages. Go to Mexico. Go to the border. Go to the inner cities. Go to places of poverty and hurt and pain and tell them how poor you feel. Who will go for us? God is asking. The church has failed. The church has no rebuke. If the church has no rebuke, the church is of no use. That is our job. And if we don't do it, God's going to find somebody else. If we don't do it, someone else will answer the call. I know I have felt helpless and hopeless. I know many of you say the same thing to me. What can we do? What can we do? You know, there is a ray of hope because people are answering the call. Last week, I think it was Tuesday, a virtually spontaneous protest was organized at the corner of Oceanside Boulevard and College Boulevard. We didn't tell you about it on Sunday morning because we didn't even know about it. And it was organized by teenagers, is what I'm told. And so after I had been here, I guess I left about, it was from 4 to 7. I finally got away from here about 6. Josh and Caroline, and who else went to the protest? Tammy? Yes, Tammy. Thank you, Tammy. I'm going to show some of Tammy's great work. So I got there, and I called Josh on the phone or texted him. I said, hey, what corner are you going to be on? Because there's 4 corners. And I got there, and it was on every corner. And suddenly, as I saw the people there, chanting without fear, marching for their rights, speaking up, answering the call of God, who shall go for us? These were the people who said, here am I, send me. Who will go for us? Here am I, send me. Who will go for us? These are the ones that showed up for God. These are the ones that showed up for the poor, for the orphan, for the widow. These are the ones who showed up to speak for the righteous, to speak for the morality of our God. We are in covenant. God will be our God if we shall be God's people. We shall not forget the covenant that we've made with God and with each other. We shall not forget the justice that God demands. Who will go for us? This was Oceanside Boulevard and College Boulevard. Who will go for us? Won't you?